It feels like watching a car crash happen in slow motion and you have no means of stopping it. There's a lot of things in this film that has a parallel to The Last of Us Part 2 and how mad everyone got with that. I even think the Silent Hill might be worse than The Last of Us Part 2. They have really cheapened it and it just breaks my heart. Like, they've really done a disservice. Oh my god, I'm gonna get upset. Is that weird? I just felt myself getting choked up as I was saying it. Oh my god, no, I don't want to cry. Why are we even doing this if you're taking away the point of the entire thing? So hi guys, it's me, Happy Cat, or maybe I'm gonna be Angry Cat in this episode. You guys can decide on that one. Return to Silent Hill came out in the UK today on Friday the 23rd, and I went to go and see like the first showing of the day, which was at midday. I turn up and there was only like 5 other people there. I've never seen the cinema so quiet in my entire life. It shook me how quiet it was. I even questioned the staff, like, you are open, aren't you? And just so you know, guys, don't worry, I won't be spoiling all the details of the game in the first like 5 to 10 minutes. I will be talking spoilers later on. I will leave a timestamp in the video, so if you just want to see me rant about the spoilers, because my god, there are so many. I have to get them off my chest, otherwise I'm going to need therapy. Okay, so I go into the film, and I will say for the first half hour of the movie, I was pleasantly surprised. And as I was watching the movie, I was thinking, oh, maybe the critics have got it wrong. How did they score this 7% on Rotten Tomatoes? I don't understand how that works, because the first half hour, pretty much on point. The setting is good. The scenery is good. They're following the story of the game pretty well in that first half hour. It's looking good. They've got some new story scenes, which obviously I won't spoil here. But when it gets a bit more of the introduction to James, and we get like a little bit of an introduction to the actual setting where the game would start, which I actually appreciate. I like some little bit more extra context on the characters. And we were going quite well. The actual town looked amazing. And of course, when the fog comes in, it looks great. It does have this vibe through the whole film that is it. You can tell it most of it's filmed on the sound studio. I don't know all of it is, but like there's something about the whole film that just made it feel like, I mean, it probably was filmed with a filter. And I don't know, something about it just seemed really off. Like it just didn't seem to like line up so well with the characters. I don't know how this is happening, but it is. And it's really jarring through the whole film. It's something I've really noticed. I'm going to try my best to talk some positive. So the beginning half hour seemed good. It seemed like, okay, they're staying quite truthful. I don't know where the 7% is coming from. And sure enough, as the film goes along, I start realizing, oh, this is where it's all going wrong. It feels like watching a car crash happen in slow motion and you have no means of stopping it. And I actually think there was a couple points in the film where I literally put my hand to my head and I was like, did that actually just happen? Are we doing this? Like there was just so many like what the F moments, but not in a good way. In a bad way. I'm going to try so hard not to spoil the first half. Right. So, other positives I could talk about. So, the acting is kind of okay. I feel bad for the actor who plays James, really, because I think he's got quite good potential. I think he's quite a good actor, but I think it's his direction that's a bit off. Like, because he can get emotional, he can get scared, he can kind of do it well. And I do think if his character was directed in the right kind of way, he would have been able to pull it off. I think we can't necessarily blame his performance because it's usually how they're being directed. That's what I'm thinking. The lady playing Maria, well, I gotta be careful here because I'm going to go into spoilers, but let's just say some parts of her acting was good and other parts she did wasn't that hot. And for people who's watched the film, you probably kind of know what I'm getting at here. I'll go into spoilers later. And of course, we get the girl who played Laura reprising her role. She was actually really good in this. Again, it's still one of those things that, like, she was good regardless, right? But it's still one of those things that, like, the character direction was a bit different to the game. So she still played it really well, though. Like, and she obviously knows the character very well because she did it in the game as well. So I am glad that she reprised the role. Other characters, I can't really talk about other characters until we get into the spoiler section, to be honest, because most of my issues I have is about the other characters. Okay, very briefly, sound design. Sound design was actually good for the atmosphere. The fact that you didn't really notice the sound design that much is a good thing, because it means it didn't stand out. It all felt like it kind of clicked into place. And when Pyramid Head is like going on his rampage, you can kind of hear like the little chimes that would be played in the game when Pyramid Head was kind of coming. I thought that was really nice. I heard those chimes and I was like, oh, that's the Pyramid Head noise. Like, it kind of sent a shiver down my spine. However, they didn't use like hardly use any of the music from the game, which I was really confused with, because the music is one of my favorite parts of Silent Hill, and I was like listening out for the music. And in some of those key scenes when the music's being played, I don't remember hearing them in the film. I will say one scene, like with Angela being at the mirror holding the knife. Obviously that's in the game, so you hear the Promise piano music playing in the game. I don't remember hearing that in the film, unless I had just missed it. But in general, we barely hear any Silent Hill music. I think we hear like a tiny bit at the beginning of the intro card, and then we have the end song is the same as the game. However, they only play it for like 30 seconds or a minute, and then it changes to a modern day, like actual like pop song, which is kind of weird. I don't know whether they just had some licensing issues with using the songs, because obviously it might be an IP issue or like a copyright issue. I don't know what happened with the music, but I just feel like there was a lot less music from the game. I was expecting to hear it on repeat throughout the film, but it just didn't happen. Okay, I'll quickly talk about the visuals. Again, I really want to get into the spoilers because that's where the meat of this anger is. I need to get to it. But for the people who haven't seen the film and don't want to be spoiled, the visuals, like I said a bit before, it kind of looks great in some places, bad in others. Some of the CGI was pretty dreadful. However, I did find out they had about $25 million to make this film, and actually that's way below the average like film. Not many films are made with that little budget. So I guess for the budget they had, I guess that's all they could do. However, they made some design choices. Like we see the beetles, and if you've seen the trailers, you'll know that they had like the beetles and like the roaches in there. They did something to the roaches which was a little bit odd with CGI. I'll get into that with the spoilers. But again, like I feel like that money being spent doing that maybe could have been spent like polishing up the general CGI. I don't know. Yes, the whole film just felt like it was very jarring. It just didn't feel like the characters were actually in the world. Like visually you can see that they're in the world, but it didn't feel like they were in the world, if that makes sense. And I know they were for some parts, and I will say the actual look of the world looks good. So putting aside how the actors don't look like they're in the world, the actual world itself looks good. And when it did shift to the other world, I did see some like little behind the scenes makings of it, and those scenes were done practically. Like they built the set, and you can tell that in the film, because those parts when they're running through like the other world, that's when it looks the most real because they did build it and it did look real. But yeah, I can't give too much away without going into spoilers, but I will say there are scenes that are like for like the game, but there is a lot of differences which I'm going to get into in the spoilers. Okay, that's a brief outline for people who don't want to get massively spoiled. Just before I go into spoilers, would I recommend seeing this film? I think, honestly, if you're a general movie goer, a horror film lover, you might like this film. I still think it's going to confuse a lot of people who's not familiar with the game. I don't think they tell the story that well, or they're missing some important details. Um, yeah, I think people watching this with no past experience, there might be moments in this that are like, what the hell is happening? And they might not get it. But I think people who played the game are not going to like this adaptation because it's not that faithful to the game, unfortunately. I feel like it's the same situation as The Last of Us Part 2 TV show. If you guys know about The Last of Us, the first series was great. The second series, they really changed up the characters' behaviors and stuff. It's very similar to that. There's a lot of things in this film that has a parallel to The Last of Us Part 2 and how mad everyone got with that. I even think the Silent Hill might be worse than The Last of Us Part 2. Take that idea, and that is what I kind of think about this film. So I will also say with the visual stuff as well, there were warnings before the film started, that they were going to be using strobe lights and there was going to be an epilepsy warning. Oh my God, they weren't joking about the strobe lights. I mean, I'm not an epileptic. Epileptic? Is that right? I don't have epilepsy. But the strobe lights were so strong in this game. I was worried I was gonna randomly have it. Like, I'm not even joking. Like, the strobe lights were I get migraine triggers, right? I have a trigger for migraines. And I had to close, like, the lights were so bad. I was worried it was going to trigger a migraine. I had to close my eyes during those bits. But even so, even with my eyes closed, the strobe lights were so bright. I could see them through my eyelids. Like, and it was still like hurting my head even with my eyes closed. So go in with that like piece of warning if you have epilepsy or anything like that. Probably best to avoid this film. Or if you're sensitive to migraines, like just keep in mind like those scenes are quite like strong in the film, and also in those same scenes the camera movement as well was just crazy. Like they had like the shaky cam effect going on, or like they go into like first person view with James, like if he's running from something. But the problem is the camera is too shaky and you can't freaking see a thing. The feeling they were trying to give just felt a bit too much. It was a bit like I felt a bit motion sick on some of the camera things as well. And there was even like a scene where like the camera's spinning around and around, and like literally I felt dizzy. Because I get vertigo as well. I know it's terrible, isn't it? I get migraines and vertigo, but I have vertigo too. So like literally like trying to watch this film was putting my body through it. I was getting dizzy, I was feeling nauseous, and I was getting like my brain was activating from the strobe lights. Honestly, so just keep that in mind if you're a bit like sensitive to those sort of things. Like it doesn't happen that often in the film, but there were a few times, even with the camera thing, I just had to close my eyes for a second because like the screen was really just making me feel a bit off. Right. Let's get into spoilers. And because I know how my brain works, okay, I've got like the ADHD part of my brain where I'm going to go off in tangents. I'm going to say something and it's going to remind me of something else. I'm going to try not to go on a tangent too much. I probably will. But my plan is I'm just going to kind of talk through the film as I remember it. I didn't really sit and take notes, but I'm just going to talk about the film in order as I remember it, and then say all my issues I have as we go. Right, so we start off when James meets Mary for the first time. James almost has a car crash and it causes her suitcases to fly on the floor. I don't know how her suitcases flew on the floor. I didn't quite see how that happened. I don't know if he ran over them. I don't know. It was a bit, I couldn't quite tell what happened. Anyway, her suitcases on the floor. They're just outside of Silent Hill. Like they're on the bit where James starts the game normally. And then James offers to take her back to Silent Hill because he's kind of ruined her day with the car crash. I didn't really mind this meeting too much. Like, it's kind of okay. I don't mind seeing the introduction of how they met. Then get some sort of like jump forwards, but we're still in the flashback. So we're in the flashbacks, but we're jumping forward a bit. So we obviously see that they don't say that she's died yet, but they've said that, you know, he's no longer around with her. And you can see he's getting depressed. He's getting into fights. He's just becoming a bit of a mess. Then in his apartment, he sees a letter on the floor and it's from Mary. I don't know how this letter was there. Oh, also, by the way, James is a painter now, which is kind of weird. I don't know what's making them do that, but okay. I don't see James as a painter unless I missed that in the game. I don't think so. But anyway, yeah, okay. So anyway, he finds the letter from Mary, and then of course he ends up in Silent Hill. He goes to Silent Hill and it's absolutely pouring down with rain, so he just like falls asleep in the car, I guess. That's another issue I had about this film, is like the way they got people traveling from one place to another seemed a bit jarring in places, and I'll get to that as we get to there's a particular scene which really kind of irritates me with this. So I'll again, this is me going on a tangent. I'll wait till I get to that point. Okay, so we get the cool little bathroom scene. So this part now is pretty much like for like the game. James does his little bathroom scene, looks in the mirror, then heads down towards Silent Hill. We then like move forward to when he's gets to the town. Okay, of course, and as he walks down towards Silent Hill at the beginning of the game, we of course come across Angela. But Angela's looking a lot like Mary, same actress playing her. I'll come to that a little bit later. She's putting out sandbags to stop water, like to stop floods coming in. And she's explaining how there's always a fire and then a flood. So again, she's not looking for her mum. She's not looking, she's just putting sandbags down. So we don't really get much conversation with her, and then we continue on to the town. He finds a homeless man in a little shelter, and he has the radio. But like so far, I'm happy with it. I don't mind changes like that because that kind of makes sense. Like, that's great. Add a new character in. That's fine. We then hear the radio do the crackling noise. The only problem here is that it's never explained to James how the radio works. So he's figured out, I guess, that the sound he knows the monsters are around, but he doesn't seem to acknowledge that to the audience. Then James sees a glow in the distance, and it's actually the nightclub lighting up. So James goes towards it, and I'm thinking, oh, okay, they're changing things up a bit. James is going to the nightclub now. And I thought, oh, okay, maybe now we're going to see Mary. Maybe we're going to have the Mary scene in the nightclub early, but that's fine. As long as she's in there, it's all good. He opens the door and then immediately has a flashback. He immediately has a flashback to him and Mary in the past, having parties there with a group of people who will become relevant to the story. These group of people were not in the game. And I will be comparing this to the game, like the differences. So obviously going to the nightclub this early didn't happen in the game. It happened a lot later in the game. Also, the nightclub doesn't look anything like the nightclub in the game. It looks like a normal bar. like it's just wood. It's just like everything's just wood. There's no like neon glows or no pinks and blues. Nothing like that. It's just a bar. At that point, he hears the radio, I think, go off. Something happens. At this point, the homeless man is also trying to get his attention because he could hear the radio going, and he's trying to get communication to James. I also want to make a good point about this. So keep this in your mind. This homeless man, even though he seems like a small character, he's important for something that makes sense later on. So I just want you to keep that in mind too. Anyway, James goes to investigate because he could hear a struggle. He gets there and finds that this homeless man has died because one of the creatures, the one with the arms wrapped around, you've seen them from the trailer, right? Yeah, so this creature has killed the man with like acid. So anyway, he picks up the radio and then it turns into the other world almost immediately. We don't get to explore anywhere else. It goes straight to the other world. We hear the sirens, which I'm glad the sirens are in there. However, this seems a bit weird. They do like this weird 360 pan. Obviously, this was in the sound studio. It must have been. But the problem is because James has just stood still looking forward. He's looking panicked. And he's doing like a little trembly thing with his hands. Like, that's what I mean. I think the actor's like trying his best here. But my issue is here, obviously, he had to keep really still for this 360 scan. But that means as the world's changing around him, James isn't looking around terrified. He's just looking at one spot terrified. So I feel like that was a bit weird. Again, it's not his fault. It's probably the way they had to shoot that scene. He had to probably keep still as the camera traveled around. But I feel like you would be looking all around you rather than just keeping really still. So that was a bit jarring. Okay, so at this point, James is just running for his life. And he sort of runs into like an alleyway. And then it kind of cuts now to the scene, which I thought was going to happen a lot later on in the film. It looks like the scene with like the grate on the floor. Normally in the game, this is the point where those, I can't remember the freaking name of the monsters. That's not good, is it? Those like suction monsters are like underneath the grate as you're running along it. And you got obviously all the bugs and all the cockroaches there. That happens then. But I don't understand where this is. This is part of the problem with this film because it doesn't it's confusing. So even though he's like running down, because he's on the street and then he starts running down the alleyways and then he comes to like this grated area and I'm like, what's underneath this grate? Where does it go? You were on the solid ground and now you're running on this long-winded grate thing. It was weird. And the cockroaches here, they look really, 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 really bad. I'm sorry, the CGI looks so bad. I'm pretty sure if you asked any kind of AI tool to make you a scene like that, it would probably do a better job. I know that sounds really bad, but it kind of looks like, I don't know, it just looks really bad. It looks like graphics you would have had like 10 years ago. And I know that's harsh. I can't be too judgmental on the graphics because they had a small budget to make this film. I understand that. But my issue with the cockroaches is that James ends up running through a fence and then the cockroaches climb up the fence. And then it pans into them and they have like a weird like little face with a like mouths and it just looks weird. They almost look like some weird like, I don't know, rodent kind of thing. It's just kind of weird. And I'm like, why do we have that? It's just a bit odd. Anyway, so obviously we're still in the other world and James makes it to the apartments. So how they've done it in this film is that it's actually James and Mary's apartment because they lived there. They lived in Silent Hill. So they go to his apartment and we do get, and I'm going to say some shots that I do like because there are some shots I do like. We do see like the windows in the apartments. They have the red squares. I'm so happy they have that. They have like the window panels have like a red like obviously they got like a red, you know, filter on them. So the light coming in from the outside makes them glow and it looks like the red panels that you see in the game. Yeah, that reminds me so much of the game. I'm like, that's what I mean. There's some little some little Easter eggs and little things that like you expect to see in there. So I like that. And then we have a scene where he looks over the balcony. Can I just say as well at this point, we don't see, actually I'm going to get to that in a minute because we're going to get there. We're going to get there. Okay, yeah, so he goes out of the balcony a bit and overlooks the apartments like you just sort of do in the game. And it pans out and you can see the balcony above. And I quite like this, that they have the silhouette, like shadow figure of like a mannequin or like a person stood there. I like that because that's also in the game. Anyway, James climbs up to the apartment, goes in, and he sees Mary's dress in there. Also loads of moths. All the moths are in this room. I'm not sure why they put loads of moths in this room. The moths are also really bad on CGI. Basically, anytime there's bugs in this film, the CGI is bad. The moths aren't that good, to be honest. Anyway, so James sees a torch on the table, and it's what I mean. Up to now, I'm pretty happy with how this is going. I'm like, okay, there's some little changes. But so far, it's lining up to the game. I'm not mad at it at this point. Like, I'm actually, at this point, I'm sat there thinking, is 7% on Rotten Tomatoes too harsh for this game? Like, it's actually doing okay up to this point. It's actually pretty in line with the game. Obviously, they're rushing through it a little bit because they have to. But, you know, it's, you know, it makes sense for the story. So up to now, I don't hate it. But yeah, he picks up the torch on the flashlight if you're American on the table. He picks up the flashlight and I was suspecting to see a mannequin jump scare. Did we get one? No, we didn't. In fact, this is the point I was going to make just now. There are no mannequins in this game, in this film. How do we have Silent Hill 2 and we don't have any of the mannequin creatures? So then James hears a noise and I believe it's a baby crying, which never gets explained in this film. We don't know why we hear a baby crying, but we hear a baby crying. And as we get closer to the noise, we then hear coughing and we go into a bathroom and we see that it's Eddie. Now, I am glad that Eddie's here. It's nice to see him. However, he doesn't show up in the film after this scene. After this section with Eddie, we never see him ever again. And it doesn't make sense, which I'll get to a bit later. It doesn't make sense why Eddie is here when we find out what the other characters are doing here. It makes no sense for Eddie to be in this film. They should have just scrapped him altogether. Otherwise, it makes no sense. Also, scrapping Eddie later in the film is such a pivotal point for James. Now, for those who haven't played the game and don't want to get spoiled by this, because you might want to play the game later, just like pause this for like, or just skip like 30 seconds. I'll say it really quickly. So obviously in the game, when James has a boss fight with Eddie, James kills him. And then obviously James is like, oh my God, like I've just killed someone for the first time. And James needs that realization. It's such an important part of the game. For Eddie not to be there in this part of the film is just ridiculous. Anyway. Okay. So yeah, then we hear a baby crying again, which again doesn't get explained. I mean, it does get explained why you hear the babies. No, you explain how the baby noise is happening, but you don't know why there's a baby. Like, anyway, we follow the noise and we get to the not the cage in the corridor, the metal bars in the corridor where we normally see Pyramid Head standing, and the other side of those bars is Laura, and Laura's hiding in a little like in a little hole in the wall on the other side of the bars. She has like the noise coming from her is she's like holding this weird baby thing, but the baby is like a disfigured, weird, creepy doll thing that's kind of alive. I don't know what it is. It must be like a monster. Anyway, Laura is a bit skeptical to come to help. Eddie's still with us at this point. Eddie's having his little back and forth. But all the commotion sends Pyramid Head over. Pyramid Head starts coming, and Eddie is like, yo, I'm out of here. And he's not joking when he's out there. He is gone for the rest of the film. We never see Eddie again. I don't know what they were thinking about that, but there we go. And then Pyramid Head starts like bending the bars out and starts trying to chase James. James is legging it at this point. He's escaping. Okay, so James is continuing to run, and then we find like a creature on the ground, and we do see this in the trailer of like this sort of creature sort of curled up on the floor, and then it turns its head all the way over to look at James. Obviously it looks like Mary. A little bit CGI is a little bit dodgy, but anyway, then it turns into a massive spider bladey thing. So it's like a new creature we haven't. I mean, I'm guessing they're trying to make it similar to the spidery kind of lady in like the hospital of the original game, like on the top floor. However, it doesn't look like that. I don't know. It looks like a new creature, so some kind of spider lady. So we've got Pyramid Head on our trail, and we got Spider Lady on our trail. Oh my God, I just realized I missed a bit earlier, and I don't know if I missed a bit. It was either just before we see Eddie, or it might be after this scene, but I'm going to put it in here because I can't remember if it was before or after the scene. But James finds the TV on. So this is meant to be the scene. Normally, this is the scene where James walks in on the TV and he sees like a version of himself on the chair, deceased. So this is meant to be the scene in the apartment where James walks in, he sees the deceased version of him on the chair with the TV just on with some tapes on the floor. We see that little scene there, but I'm just trying to remember if it's before or after this Pyramid Head section. I can't remember, but it's in the apartment, so I'm going to say it here just because I wasn't sure exactly where it is. The reason why I say this now is because after the TV section, the strobe lights happen and everything goes crazy, and James has got his hands on his head. He's falling to the floor in pain. And I think we get a flashback. If I try to remember what happened, we get a flashback at this point. Again, it's just a flashback to Mary. Do you know what? The flashbacks of Mary are so forgettable. I forget which one happened in which order. Anyway, so I'm going to put that scene in here, but I can't remember if it's before or after the Pyramid Head chasing. Back to Pyramid Head chasing. So we got the Spider Lady and Pyramid Head still trying to chase James. James runs into the room and hides in the closet. Pyramid Head comes in and attacks the Spider Lady, and then he kind of throws her on the table and tries to kill her. It looks a bit I mean, it looks cool when he's using his sword to defeat her. But when he drags her on the table, he then just starts like whacking her with his hands, which looked a bit weird to me. But anyway, Pyramid Head deals with the Spider Lady for us, which is quite useful. But then Pyramid Head can sense James is in the closet, and he walks towards James to go and attack him. Then the sirens go off and they both scream in pain. They try to make it too obvious that, oh look, they're both having pain. I think in the like they keep it quite vague in the game, like they don't make it too obvious, but in the film they literally pan to James, pan to Pyramid Head, pan to James, pan to Pyramid Head, and it goes back and forth really quickly to say, look guys, they both have the same pain. Look guys, look audience, they have the same pain. Like they're trying to really ram it in your face. I'm like, okay, I get it, chill out. So James wakes up and then he opens the door. He opens the cupboard door and then he finds Angela on the floor. Now, I don't remember the classic piano music, Promise, being played once in the scene. Unless it was, and I don't remember, but I remember like waiting for it because it's literally my favorite piece of music from the game. So I know if I heard the piece of music, I would be like, oh, the music happened. I don't remember the music happening. I was focusing too much on what Angela was doing or not doing. Anyway, and by the way, Angela's being played by the same actress as Maria. I think I might have mentioned that earlier. Anyway, so we get Angela talking into the mirror, but her script is completely different to the game. She doesn't say the same things. She doesn't talk about her, like, because I know in the game she kind of alludes to her being depressed, how she doesn't want to live, how there's no way out, how, you know, you're going to have one option in the end kind of attitude. She doesn't talk like that in here. She more talks to James like more to do with his life rather than her life. It's a bit weird, and she again, she sort of backs into the wall like, stay away from me, stay away from me. And James is like, I'm not gonna hurt you. And then that's kind of it really. James just sort of leaves her like, okay, I'll leave you to it then. So anyway, at this point he leaves. Now, unless I'm trying to remember the order of this, because the order is in like a different order to what it is in the game, so it's kind of throwing me. I'm trying to remember which order the film goes in. I remember all the scenes, but trying to remember the order of them. I think after this bit is when he then finds Maria for the first time. So we've gone quite a long way before we even meet Maria in this film, which also makes me feel like we don't get enough time with Maria. I feel like Maria's very rushed in this. I think we see more of Angela than we do of Maria. But we don't find Maria in the park or like the dock that looks over the water. We're like walking in a labyrinth type thing, like a maze, like a concrete maze. We're just walking around a maze. And then we see Maria. She comes to us. Now, this is the bit. I like the actress playing Maria. I like the actress playing Mary. So the actress playing Mary plays Angela, Mary, and Maria. I think she plays Angela well. I think she plays Mary really well. I'm a little bit unsold on her performance of Maria. I don't think she's quite sassy enough to play Maria. Like, she still looked a bit timid and a bit like uneasy. But Maria's meant to be super confident. Like, she's meant to be basically guiding James. So yeah, she looked a bit too timid to be Maria. You could definitely see the character differences. You could definitely see that she was portraying the characters differently. So it wasn't like it was Maria. But I guess the actress, again, I'm going to get to this thing later, because we find out later on that in the film version, at least, all the characters are Maria, like are Mary. So Mary is Angela and Mary is oh god, my brain's getting confused. So Mary is Angela and Mary is Maria. So Angela is also part of Mary in this film version, which is so bizarre. Anyway, so maybe I'm thinking, because I do acting myself, not professionally, but I do acting myself. So I'm thinking the actress is probably thinking, oh, I'm still playing Mary as Maria. So if Mary is quite timid and kind, I should still introduce some of that character into Maria, but just a more confident version of her. I think that's how she was playing it. That's how it came across to me anyway. I think that's how she was playing it. But obviously in the game, Maria is way more confident and way more like sure of herself. Okay, I'm pretty sure from this point is when Maria tells James that she's probably at Brookhaven Hospital. That's where she was. So that's where they head to next. So they make it to the hospital. And to be honest, guys, I don't remember much from this hospital. It was not rememberable in any way. I don't even remember if they went into the main foyer, but like it didn't look anything like the game, let's put it that way. So Maria is the one that actually finds an audio tape through the documents that they find in the offices. And the audio tape is of Mary, or one of the doctors, explaining that Mary had actually been poisoned slowly over time. So she didn't actually die from like an illness similar to like what it is in the game. She actually got poisoned, and we find out later she got poisoned by her own father and the cult group. That's what actually took her off in the end. So we hear that, and then James gets a flashback to the whole occult thing. Now we actually get like 2 flashbacks in the hospital at this point, but I'll explain what the flashback is together, because they're 2 like flashbacks that happen at different times, but it is of the same scene. So James is trying to track down what the hell Mary is doing with the cult leaders. He goes into these tunnels, and then he gets to the end of the tunnels. It's like underground and like sewer pipes or something. He gets to the end of a sewer pipe and he looks through the grate, and he can see like a whole ritual thing going on. And Mary is going up to like an altar and she's drinking the solution. And then they do this weird thing where she kind of passes out, and they carry her over into like the group. And then she starts getting smeared around. I can't say, I'll say jelly. I'll say jam and jelly, that color, I'll be careful what I say on YouTube. So she starts getting smothered with this like red stuff, right? That was obviously implied to be, a type of liquid. But we don't get to see it. So to me, watching it, obviously I have no context of the scene because it's not in the games. For me, watching the scene, I felt like it was her being like torn apart, because they were like eating chunks as well. Like all the members were like eating chunks, and I thought it was her being ripped apart. But turns out I don't know what they were doing, because like she obviously lived through that. So I have no idea what they were doing, like, or were they doing it? Did they have it with them already and they poured it on her? I don't know. They didn't explain that at all. I have no idea what actually happened in that scene, other than it looked bad. Also, there's a few scenes up to now as well. Like, again, it didn't happen that long ago, where he's getting phone calls, and as he answers the phone, it's actually like his psychiatrist in like the real world that's trying to contact him for appointments that he's not turning up to, that sort of thing. I just had to bring that in there for some context now. So after this flashback that he's seen of the whatever happened to Mary happened. There's something about Mary. Oh, I love that film. Such a good film. Anyway, it then changed into the other world once again. And then for some reason, they have to traverse the hospital. I don't know why they have to go through these rooms. But anyway, they have to go through the rooms, and then they find all the nurses in there. The nurses are in this one scene, and that is it for the entire game. So you've seen the scene. Basically, what you've seen in the trailer with the nurses is pretty much the entirety of their time in the film. Like, they're literally in it for like less than 5 minutes. Anyway, so all the nurses are there, and they all start waking up, and then they start chasing them down the corridor. They run into an elevator. So this is like in the game, this is when Pyramid Head is chasing them down the corridor to the elevator. This time it's all the nurses. They chase them down the corridor to the elevator. There's no power in the hospital. They've already explained how there's no power in the hospital. Like, there is no power. Like, they made that very clear. As soon as they arrive at the hospital, nothing's working. They go in the elevator. Of course, it's not working because nothing's working. But he's just trying to press the buttons to make this elevator work. It seems weird to me because we know it's not going to work. Anyway, the nurses come. He gets like I think he has a piece of like a wheelchair. He like snapped off an arm of a wheelchair. He's got that as defense. So he starts trying to defend himself against the nurses. The nurses kind of almost break, like ceramic bowls almost with like powder inside. I guess it's meant to be like urns with ashes or something. That's the kind of vibe I got. Anyway, so he's like trying to defend himself against the nurses. But one nurse slips through, and then that nurse is the one that attacks Maria, and Maria does get a pretty nasty wound. And then during this whole craziness, James just whacks the elevator button harder, and eureka, it works. It just suddenly starts moving, which seems so unrealistic, but there we go. So anyway, just like what happens in the game, fine, I can actually say that. Just like what happens in the game, Maria has to stay behind on a hospital bed, and James has to go ahead without her for a little bit. He then carries on. Oh, then he spots Laura, and then he starts chasing Laura. Laura, of course, is doing her little creepiness thing, but Laura's talking to James more like she knows what's going on. So obviously in the games, Laura is like an actual little girl that's separate to, like, she's not Mary. In the film, she is part of Mary's consciousness. It's kind of weird. So she's talking in riddles to James, like, you don't really want to find out the truth, do you? It's kind of like that. So she lures her into the room, similar to the game. She then closes the door on him, but she doesn't say the word fart face, which I'm very annoyed about. Why does she not say the word fart face? I don't know why they had to not include that. And then we have like a boss fight. And I will just say, right, these boss fights are not boss fight. The first one was even a fight because Pyramid Head took out the Spider Lady. This one is kind of like the same Spider Lady again. Is the design on this one isn't much different to the last Spider Lady. It's not the thing that comes out the ceiling like that happens in the game, where it's like the cage things that drop from the ceiling. They don't. It's not that enemy at all. It's something completely different. It's like a spider lady thing. I don't even remember how he defeats this one. Because he doesn't have any weapons in it. Like, he doesn't have to defend himself against anything. All these monsters just drop around him. He doesn't even have to do anything. But however he defeats it, there's no fighting, or there's no drama. There's no tension of, oh my god, I need to like save myself. There's nothing like that. But I think this is the moment when James kind of collapses, or he hears the noise again. I can't remember exactly, but he wakes up, and now he's in like the real world. Turns out, so this is like halfway through the film. So I'm just gonna sort of lay this out. This is halfway through the film, and we're about to get one of the biggest reveals of the game in like an off comment, like halfway through the film, right? So he wakes up in an asylum kind of place, or like a mental hospital, and his psychiatrist is there. Like, so James is like kind of spaced out on the bed. His psychiatrist is basically talking to the doctor there, how James is grieving from the death of his wife, and he's struggling to move on, and he can't accept her fate. So we get the reveal like halfway through the film of like, oh no, James is imagining everything, and she literally says it like he's hallucinating, like and then she goes to speak to him, and she says, nothing you see is real, what you're seeing isn't real. So from that point onwards, all the audience knows nothing's real, and it's all in his head. But that is not what happens in the games, because in the games, what is happening is real. Like he's actually in Silent Hill. The monsters are there. They're just manifesting based on his experience. But he can die there, like it happens. But in this version, he's just the whole Silent Hill thing's in his head. He's imagining everything. And the fact they've told us that Mary died this early on, I don't know why they're giving this reveal this early on. It makes no sense to me. I don't know why they're doing it this early on. It's like The Sixth Sense. Imagine the twist in The Sixth Sense happening halfway through the film. It loses all the power. I don't understand that. I don't know why they did it. But anyway, James sort of gets up and sort of stares out the window. I think this is when this happened, and then he starts seeing loads of moths, and then he's transported back into Silent Hill. He obviously kind of comes around in the hospital. He goes and tells Maria that like I think he said something like he knows how to end it, or something like he kind of knows what he's doing to fix it. Then they walk down this corridor full of like art gallery paintings. It's meant to be his paintings because he's an artist now. So they kind of walk down a corridor full of paintings. And then, because Maria's kind of saying to him, like, we need to get out of here. We can just leave together. We can just start our life together. We don't need to be here. And then James like summons Pyramid Head. And Pyramid Head turns up and then completely annihilates Maria. Like she's getting the big Buster sword through her. So she's like dying. And then the camera pans in to Pyramid Head's helmet and goes through the helmet and we see James. So it's almost like, I mean, obviously, like we know in the games, James is meant to be a manifestation of himself reflected in Pyramid Head. However, we don't see that as actually James's body inside the Pyramid Head, right? Like it's just kind of weird how it's like, oh no, James is Pyramid Head. Doesn't make sense. But I feel like for the average film goer who hasn't seen the games might get very confused with what the hell's just gone on. Right, and then after this scene, we then jump forward and it's the scene what we see in the trailer where James kind of comes out of the lake and he's woken up from swimming out of the lake. I don't know how we got to the point of him being with Pyramid Head in the corridor with Mary, then suddenly coming out of a lake. I don't know what's happened in between that, but we just suddenly jumped to there. So we get to Lakeview Hotel. We don't get to see much of the hotel, just like the hospital. We literally just walk in, go straight into one room. We then see Laura, who then kind of explains a little bit of what's going on, and then James it triggers James to have a flashback. So we see in the flashback that this flashback is basically explaining what happened to Mary. So it's kind of weird though, because she gets sick at one point. Like she's getting sick because her family are poisoning her, which is kind of weird. So she gets sick and then she has that conversation with James. Like she left, like we sort of read in the notes and stuff as we go in the game. But she has like the argument with James of like, you know, do it, call me disgusting, call me gross and all that sort of thing. Like, you know, say I'm ugly kind of. I'm paraphrasing, but you know what I mean? She's saying those things. But the thing is, she doesn't look any different. Like she looks fine. Like there's nothing physically wrong with her appearance. So her illness in this version of the film, she doesn't really look that ill until like the very, very end. Like she looks kind of healthy. So her in the film, she doesn't really have any hatred towards James, which is weird. She just thinks James hates her because of her being in the cult. But James doesn't have any ill thoughts about her at all. Like James is pretty chill about her, like, and also because there's nothing wrong with her appearance, like her illness isn't making her look physically ill. There's nothing there about that. So, and they've taken away the whole concept of James's character here, how like the reason why he's so depressed in Silent Hill in the game is because he didn't just sort of take her out for her own sake. He took her out for his own sake too. Like he didn't really want to look after her. You know, he didn't want to look after her anymore. He was seeing her as a burden. He was angry with her. You know, he felt like he couldn't move on because she was still there all the time. You know, like he did it for selfish reasons, as well. Where in this one, they've kind of sugarcoated everything. Like, there's nothing like that in James's development in the film at all. They've taken his whole core of the character away, where he's actually doing it purely out of love and because she asked him to. Like, she asked him to do it. Which is kind of weird, because it's kind of like defeats the whole point of the freaking game. This whole film defeats the point of the game. I mean, defeats the point of the film. Like, why? Why are we even doing this? If you're taking away the point of the entire thing. Okay, so we find out that he took care of the deed using a like hand flannel, which is kind of a weird thing to use, but okay. It didn't even look like it was covering her, but you could tell like on set, like you could tell he was being careful where to place it so she could still breathe. Like it didn't look very convincing. Anyway. Just something I noticed. All these things are really noticeable. Anyway. So then we get to the scene and the scene changes. So I can't remember if he walks into a room or he just like has one of his head things and then comes round and he's in the room. I can't remember how he gets in the room. Because it jumps around so much in this film. Like, I can't remember how he gets in the room. But anyway, he comes into the room. And he sees Angela. Angela is on the bed on the floor, like a mattress on the floor. And she like pulls her dress up a little bit and some hands come onto her legs. That's kind of creepy. I quite like that. To be honest, it's probably one bit that I quite like that they kept it in there. It doesn't help that it's meant to be Mary, not Angela. Don't forget, like, this whole thing is Mary's trauma, not Angela's. Angela doesn't exist. Anyway. And then Angela gets sucked into the bed and then becomes part of the abstract daddy boss. It's not a fight. I'm just going to call it a boss because it's not even a fight. But she becomes part of the abstract daddy thing. They've given abstract daddy a face, which is freaking weird. Obviously, she's at the bottom. Daddy is there. I gotta be careful what I say on YouTube. He's there, but they've also made a face for the daddy. Why? I think it was way more creepier when there was no face to it. No, they've given them a face, which it doesn't even look like a human face. It looks freaking weird. I will say though, the one thing I liked about the scene, actually, there's two things I like about the scene, but we don't get to see much of it. One thing I liked about the scene is that the room changes to the piston things, which is kind of cool, and all this gross, like, grotesque, like, skin legion things are all on the floor. It's all squidgy. Like, I really like the look of it. We didn't get to see it much though. Like, I could see behind the abstract daddy, like, all the pistons and the walls, but it was all kind of out of focus, so you couldn't even see it properly. I wish I could see, like, the entire set. That would have been kind of, I mean, the scene at least. We don't get to see how the scene looks. But I will say the sound effects in this section were really good. The sound design of the monsters, to be fair, the sound design of the monsters throughout the game was pretty good. But the Abstract Daddy one, the sound was freaking amazing, because the moaning and the groaning, but also like the pain and the growling, all mixed together. It was so freaking good. I even think the sound in the film of the Abstract Daddy sounded better than the game. I think it sounded way more creepier and grotesque in the film than the game. However, it looked ridiculous. It looked absolutely ridiculous. It didn't look anything like it was meant to look. The freaking faces were weird. How he defeats said boss is he goes up to the Angela character on the Abstract Daddy and just puts his hands on her head and like touches his head towards her, and then the Abstract Daddy just disintegrates. That's the boss fight. So yeah, James carries on going through Lakeview Hotel, and there's fire everywhere now in like the corridors and everything. But like, this is the scene where Angela's meant to be there. This is Angela's scene. Like, the fire is there because of Angela. The fire makes no sense for James because it's Angela's trauma, because Angela set fire to the house with her dad and brother there. It's part of her story. The fire is important to Angela. Why is it showing up here for James? It makes no freaking sense, guys. I can't. This film makes no sense. Anyway, so but instead of Angela being there, it's Mary, and she just looks at James and then walks up the stairs, doesn't say anything. He walks up the stairs and then he finds her in like oh my god, this is the scene I remember now. This is the scene that made me literally made me face palm. I literally, like, I put my hand to the head, like, what on earth is going on? Like, this is the scene that did it. This is the scene was like, oh my god, this has gone fucking weird. Excuse the language. Anyway, so he looks out, and then obviously, like, Mary is in the hospital bed. This is like the final boss scene, right? When Mary's floating in the bed, and she's like floating over like the destroyed hotel that's going on, and then like her blankets open up, and it's meant to look like moth wings. So now she has moth wings, which is weird. And then he walks up towards her. She puts her hands out to him, and then the floor moves away from him, and then he starts floating up. But oh my god, this floating animation is so freaking bad. This is the thing that made me face palm. Guys, like, could they not have just harnessed him up and just lift him up. So at least he looks like he's dangling. He doesn't even look like he's dangling. You could tell he's still like stood on a blue screen block, and they've just edited out the floor because his feet are still flat to the ground. His feet are still flat to the ground. They're not moving. So he's just being lifted up. And it's like he's not hanging. He's not dangling in any way. He's just still stood like he stood on the ground. Oh my God. This is like... Could they not have just harnessed the poor guy up and just lift him up just a little bit, just to make it look like he's being carried? Anyway, so she levitates him up towards her and then wraps her arms around her. And that's when we get like a little flash forward to him, till him carrying her out of the hospital into the car. And as you can already tell, we've skipped the whole labyrinth section, and we skipped a lot. We skipped the asylum as well. So I've got freaking hair on my nose. My cat just jumped on me just now. Got freaking hair on my nose. We skipped the whole asylum section. We skipped like the museum section. We skipped a lot of things. We haven't done any of that in this film. So yeah, he carries her into the car, and then I guess he chooses to do the in water ending. Again, there's a weird cut here where you see him putting her in the car, and then it just cuts to the car going straight in the water. We don't get the car driving up the dock into the water. The cuts are just really weird. Like traveling from A to B is just so weird in this film. But anyway, so then it just cuts to the car going straight in. I guess they don't want to film the car going over the wooden dock, because it's probably not theirs. Obviously, they would have to work out how to film that. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like they're just trying to cut money where they can. Anyway, so the car goes in the water. He's then sort of saying, right, this is how I finally end it. This is how we're finally letting things go. And then I guess it gets like the resurrection ending, where suddenly he's driving and it goes back to the beginning again, where he has the car crash, avoids the car crash, and her suitcases go over the road. And then he, instead of offering her to take her to Silent Hill, he offers to take her to her main destination where she was going anyway. Oh yeah, I forgot to say this as well. I think this is the part where Laura is also explaining to James what happened at the hotel. I've completely forgot to say this earlier, but she takes him to a gravestone to reveal, like, to try to make him remember what happened. She asks him to tell her Mary's whole name, and they've done it like her whole name is, I can't remember the order of this exactly, but it's Mary Laura Angela Kane, or it might be mixed around. It might be Laura Maria Angela Kane. I can't, but anyway, so all the characters' names are like, is meant to be Maria's full name, which is freaking stupid. Who decided to come up with that? Is so silly. We are told by the end of the film that the entirety of Silent Hill is in his head. All the characters are manifestations of Mary. So what the hell is Eddie doing in there? What purpose does Eddie have? They've literally said everything in there is part of James's mind. The other characters aren't their own characters. Eddie isn't his own character because the whole thing is in his mind. So why is Eddie in there? Like, why is Eddie there? Why is Eddie there? Why is Eddie there? Eddie should not be in there, because it makes no freaking sense if Eddie's in there. And I'm still so mad that they've taken all of Eddie's scenes out. They've taken the cinema out as well, like the theater. They've just taken everything, all the good bits of the game. Also, we don't, like I said, we don't have some of like the really cool scenes of the game either, like the Maria in the nightclub section and all that sort of thing. So like, they've taken out the really iconic scenes in the game. Like, there's not many iconic scenes left, really. They've taken out the whole labyrinth. I get the labyrinth section is quite a long section. It doesn't really have to be in there. This is the problem. They've tried to squeeze way too much, or too little in some ways, into an hour and a half film. I'd rather them not put all the cult stuff in there and use that time to put in the extra scenes that were meant to be there and maybe make it 2.5 hours long. Make it 2.5 hours long. Scrap all the cult stuff. Keep it true to the freaking game. Do the twist at the very end of the film where people go through this entire story thinking the whole thing's real and then find out at the end what James has done to Mary. And then you let the audience sit with it. They're too scared to talk about really dark topics. Like even I can't say stuff like on YouTube. But they don't even talk about Angela and her, why she's holding a knife, for example. That whole thing. They don't go into that at all. They don't talk about that side at all. Because again, they don't want to touch really sensitive, really heavy topics. And the whole reason, James took care of Mary was because she asked him to, and he did it out of an act of love. Where in the film, in the game, it was way darker. It's like they didn't want to make it too dark. Like it's like they wanted to sugarcoat everything. That's what it really feels like. It feels like they really softened the emotion and the whole story. Like it doesn't feel like the game. And I think that's why people are hating on it so much. I think people are hating on it because it just doesn't feel like the game. It may look like the game in some parts, but it doesn't feel like the game. And this happened with The Last of Us. I'm getting flashbacks to The Last of Us Part 2 when this happened there. It's the same bloody problem. In fact, The Last of Us 2 had less of an excuse because they had a whole series to work on it. But again, it takes some of the soul out. It takes the seriousness away. When, again, this isn't a Last of Us video, but in The Last of Us, when they make Ellie all jokey and cartoony, it takes the emotion and the weight away. There's a lot less weight because they've taken those elements away. It's not a really dark. It's not as dark as it is in the game. Let's put it that way. And there wasn't enough jump scares in this. I think if they had the mannequins in there, that'd be freaking terrifying. I just felt like they wanted to sugarcoat it. I honestly, that's the impression I take, that they just wanted to make everything a bit nicer, a little bit like, there are a few shocking scenes in this game, like how Pyramid Head take cares of Maria. That's quite shocking. I'd even argue it's probably more shocking in the film than it is in the game, how he handles her. But it's still done in like a kind of goofy way where you're panning into Pyramid Head and it's James. Also, the whole end scene in the game, basically, the entire ending of the game is not in the film. And that really annoys me. The whole ending of the game isn't in the film. Like, seeing the monsters get weaker because James is dealing with he's coming, he's winning the mental battle, so the enemies are getting weaker. That is not in the film. The whole hotel being on fire, except for that one corridor, was in the film, but like that's not there. And also, like, Angela, it's too much. Angela's story is completely written off. Like, Angela doesn't exist as Angela in this freaking film. It's Mary, Mary's other, like, her trauma side of her. I just feel cheated. I feel like, honestly, it feels like such an insult. I can't. Now I've just said it all again. I've just like remembered the film as I've been talking about it. I'm like, oh my God, it really is such an insult to the bloody game. I'm hoping anyone who hasn't played the game before, like, please play the game. Please don't take this film as your, like, don't watch the film and think like like the story, like it barely scratches the story. Go and play the game, please. Or if you're not a gamer or you're too scared to play horror games, just watch a playthrough on YouTube. Like, please go and watch it. I have a playthrough on YouTube. Go and watch my playthrough. if you never watched it, if you never played it before, like, go and watch my playthrough. I got the whole thing on there when I played it for the first time. Like, just experience the story. Like, they have really cheapened it and it just breaks my heart. Like, they've really done a disservice. Oh my God, I'm gonna get upset. Is that weird? I just felt myself getting choked up as I was saying it. Oh my God, no, I don't want to cry. I don't want this film to make me cry. No, I can't cry. Okay. Oh my God, why am I getting upset, guys? Oh my God, please stop. Please stop. I don't want to cry. Please don't cry. Don't cry. It's fine. It's fine. Oh my God, why am I getting so upset by it? It's mad. It's not a big thing to be upset about, okay, in the world we got going on right now, but I think it's just the game means a lot to a lot of people. But I feel like this game means so much to a lot of people and it touches on so many deep mental issues, and especially if you have your own mental issues. I feel like, or maybe that's where it's hitting the nerve. I think I just felt my nerve. That's it. That's the nerve it's tapping into. The game is really important to people, and I feel like they've just cheapened it. And that makes me really mad. Do you know what? It's just occurred to me, like right now, this minute, I didn't realize how much Silent Hill 2 means to me. I never really thought about it that deeply before, but yeah, it must have sunk in there. So anyway, I didn't mean to leave it on on quite a sad note, but something that this is telling me is I want to go and play the game again. I'm going to play the game and enjoy it and soak it up in every little part I can and just really freaking enjoy the story for what it's meant to be. So yes, apologies if I've forgotten other moments of the film. If I remember, I'll put them in the comments. If there's anything else I want to add to it, I'll put it in the comments. If you guys have seen it, let me know what you guys think as well and what you think of the overall critic scores and whether you're going to go see the film or not. I want to know what everyone else is kind of thinking. I feel like it's going to be quite a controversial kind of release. But anyway, I've kept you long enough, so thank you for watching. If you're still here, thank you for making it to the end. I know it's a bit of a long one, but I feel like it was just important. I needed to speak about it. I had to talk about it. So anyway, guys, I won't keep you any more of your time. So thank you all for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already and turn on the bell notifications so you can be informed when the next video is up. Channel memberships are also now live. So if you wish to support the channel further, you can do. Any money made will be put back into the channel, making it bigger and better for you guys. And the cheapest memberships, only $2.99 a month. It all goes towards helping the channel grow. And of course, buying all the games and equipment I need throughout the year as well. So yes, take care, stay safe, and until next time, bye.